Meow.
Meow.
Wow.
Hello.
Hello.
This is Kitty at work.
This is Kitty at work. I'm supposed to be showing, I got a new headband. I would normally wear my hair up, but I'm sitting in my office and it gives me a headache. So kind person made us these headbands. And what they're for is, well, partly to keep your hair out of your face, and partly they have these buttons. I'm not sure that mine is exactly placed correctly at the moment. The buttons save your ears from the masks. Only the surgical masks.
And who's making these?
A friend, a neighbor made them, gave out like 40 of them for the unit.
So the ICUs.
There's all sorts of things. People are coming up with little clips to keep these at the back of your head, but the button's kind of an easy way to do it.
Right.
And I look rather funny in it, that's the only problem.
Very funny. Why aren't you using an N95?
Well, I'm sitting in my office. I do use an N95.
Good.
At times.
You should use it all the time.
But I don't use it when I'm sitting in my, sitting around my co-workers or sitting
Cool. What day is it, by the
at the
way?
nursing station. Today is Friday.
Friday. April the 18th, 17th?
17th? Oh boy, hang on.
Yes, well, you
I
had
don't
it.
wear my watch anymore.
And the hairband is not on the wrist most of the time now, right?
What?
The hairband is not on
no,
the
I'm
wrist.
just in my office, so I have my hair down. That's why, well, partly down. It is the 17th.
Cool.
I know if I go out to a call, because on rapid response, I'm like a fireman.
Fire person, you're a
A
Canadian.
fire person.
Yeah.
I go out when I'm called.
Right, and you rush off with your little car and intubate people and rush them to the ICUs.
Yes.
Very exciting work. Not very pleasant work these days, though, is it?
Not terribly pleasant, no. No, but that's what it is.
So people are making the best of it, and people seem tense but cheerful, from what I see.
Yeah. Yeah, because we haven't been, we're not inundated yet. We're not really.
Right.
Maybe we won't be.
I see you've managed to accumulate in your little department a pile of hand sanitizer and alcohol wipes that are
And empty food bowls.
in empty food bowls in very short supply.
But I did buy a rock.
So what do you think about us now about to run out of hand sanitizer?
Oh, I don't think we will.
No?
No, we're getting alternative supplies, so we're just saving our bottles and filling them up. I don't think we'll actually run out of it. I think there's an abundance.
There's enough
of
breweries in Toronto, we shouldn't.
I think
no.
there's an abundance of it around. The drugs, on the other hand,
Yeah, the drugs. So the drugs are running out.
that's a scarier thing.
Right. The two, what are the two major paralytics we're running out of? Rocuronium and...
Cisatricurium.
I can't say suscepticurium. That came in after I left the ICU, I think.
We don't use it very often. They might in the OR.
Well, we don't have any now.
We use primarily rocuronium and sucks. We might use succinylcholine for
They didn't mention
intubation.
succinylcholine.
They didn't, but we only use it really usually for intubation.
It makes sense they're all running out.
Well, they didn't mention it, but
What about midazolam and propofol?
they seem to be in relatively short supply along with fentanyl.
It's going to be quite hard to ventilate people, isn't it, without those drugs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It may not even be possible, which is an interesting thing. We may end up with enough ventilators, but not enough drugs to put people on the ventilator.
Although we heard, as you heard with me in the car tonight, that ventilating so quickly may not be a good idea. Outcomes may be worse.
Not for everybody, no. But at the same time, what's the alternative? They're talking about CPAP and BiPAP, which we don't use in Ontario because of SARS.
Or just not intervening when you think you might.
Right. Because in SARS, we infected a lot of people with CPAP and BiPAP.
I've also heard
and we're still provincially not using CPAP and BiPAP, even if it saves the person because of the effect on staff.
we are a little bit here.
We're not supposed to
I
be.
think my guy from last night was not tubed, but he was on Optiflow.
Not, well, Optiflow, yeah, but they're they're not happy about it.
Yeah. The other thing that typically there's some treatments that seem to, with COVID not to be working as well as usual. So it's lung injury from their lungs not being as stiff and not needing as much pressure to ventilate. So there's lung injury from ventilating. Who knows why else, but ventilating doesn't seem to be really giving them the longevity we'd hope for in other populations.
Well, high airway pressure's
Then
never
there's
been
things
good.
like Lasix, when you
Yeah.
it looks like your chest is congested and they give Lasix, but they think that might be contributing to the high number of people that are going into renal
They're already dry.
So
yeah.
they've been pyrexic for days. They may be
Yeah.
actually dehydrated. We see a lung that looks wet, we give Lasix because that's what we would normally do. and it actually just worsens the progression to AKI, acute kidney.
We're learning quick, though. I think we haven't had mega cases. We've had maybe 15 in total in the ICU. So I think we're learning quite quickly. We're not just taking what we're being told. We're actually looking at it and thinking, which gives me pause for hope. However, what doesn't give me pause for hope is we have 2 units that aren't open. One's shut down for outbreak and the other one's shut down for staffing. That's not good.
What's...
Oh, it's B5. Well, we'll have to go. Say goodbye, kitty.
Ciao, me and my funny hair.
I will be right back.
I was thinking of shaving my head.
Shave your head, be bald. She's very videoable. You're gorgeous. Everybody says you're gorgeous. However, don't put your head down because people might see your roots. Because this is the year of natural hair, isn't it?
It is.
So me and Kitty were just talking about a few things. Like I asked my subs on my community tab if they'd noticed what I'd noticed if they work in healthcare, that we're just not getting long-term care admissions. We haven't for about 3 weeks. Like what I mean by that is we're not getting any into our emergency department, and definitely with the death rates and the sickness that's in the community around us in Toronto, we'd be overwhelmed now. We'd be completely jammed. We'd be in a right mess if we were taking even half of the patients that we probably would have normally took until 3 weeks ago. But we're not taking any. So Kitty's been looking into it as well, haven't you?
Well, I have, because one of my coworkers was saying that our demographic's younger, and I said, well, no, it's not. Over half the people who died are in long-term care facilities. I said, we're just not getting them here. So she just sort of paused to think about that, and it's like, well, yeah, they're just, there's nursing homes that have had 20, 30 deaths, and they're just dying in the nursing home.
Yeah, and half the patients who are alive are sick.
And it's fine to say that there's maybe a majority of them that were DNRs, not for resuscitation, but in other circumstances, patients with pneumonias, patients with heart issues, patients will often be sent from nursing homes to here.
2 or 3 a shift.
It's not uncommon for us to have a patient from a nursing home in the ICU, but we're not getting any.
About 3 weeks, none. And it's not just 1 or 2 nursing homes. It's like nobody's sending us any long-term care patients.
I don't think that there is an official directive, because I don't think the government would do that.
Nobody would sign it.
But
I
think that there is an unofficial directive, and I think it's probably very sensible from a utilitarian point of view. Elderly patients who require, long-term care facilities, most of them will not survive COVID-19 if it gets to the point of ventilation. So coming here to be ventilated would put an unnecessary strain on the healthcare system, because they wouldn't survive. And it would be a terrible way for them.
Yeah, but they're not coming here for anything.
But they're not coming here at all.
No, they're not coming for catheter changes. They're not coming because they fell. They're not coming for anything.
Maybe they're just being very careful right now.
Or because they have such high levels of nursing care in these nursing homes at night.
Yeah.
Which is nonsense, they don't.
Yeah.
So I mean,
a lot of these people,
interesting.
I just think that they're kind of keeping the public in the dark about this, because as much as, like I say, for the greater good, it's probably a good decision. Yeah. Individuals whose loved ones are in nursing care homes that they want fully resuscitated are not going to get that treatment during the pandemic.
Well, they have said quite firmly we're not sending anybody back to a nursing home if they come here, which is very reassuring until you figure out nobody's coming here.
They're not coming here.
And then you talk about
strange.
ALC transfers, like old patients who can't go home. Like, we have literally sent everybody out we possibly could.
So it's a bit of a moot point
so
at this point.
It's a sop for the public.
Anyway, I think it's interesting. Like I say, I don't think it's a bad decision necessarily, but it is a bit unusual. We would not think in this society that they would make some unilateral decision like this.
So early on as well.
And it has to be earlier on. It won't help at all. If they make it later, it wouldn't help. That they would do that unofficially, but officially, and not let the people know that this is what they were doing. Obviously, it's much easier to do it this way.
Well, that's what happened in Italy and Spain, right? They tried to treat everybody like we normally would, and they got smashed.
What about in the States?
I don't know about the States. It seems to be depending on where you are. Like, there doesn't seem to be any national direction. Obviously, with hospitals closing down there, they haven't got acute care beds in, especially in the rural areas, because they've shut their hospitals down. which is
You know,
mind blowing
I
to
do
me.
hope that they are able to at least make these people comfortable that are dying.
I believe they are. I believe they are. I mean, while we have the drugs.
But it's a strange time.
Yeah, very strange time.
And like I say, if we had double the population of patients here and elderly people who might stay on ventilators for weeks, which is what happens, we'd be in a much different situation.
It would be very different. I mean, all 31 deaths in one nursing home alone, on any given night, I would say probably 10 of them for sure would have come here.
Oh.
And when you times that by the hundreds that have died, not just sick, died, we'd be crushed. Now, your dad went to the hospital immediately.
He did go to the hospital immediately and came home again in time for dinner.
Yeah.
So all was good. But
So he's just got a bit of a sore knee.
he didn't have a COVID, he had a little fall.
Yeah, so he's just got a sore knee.
Just got
So
a sore
obviously
knee.
he went from his assisted living.
Yeah, he did.
So do you think it's because he's a high level assisted living, or really,
Or maybe that they don't have an outbreak and the mechanism of injury wasn't something that was suspicious. There was no pandemic.
But we're not getting those
issues.
patients here. I'm not seeing it. I'm just not seeing the patients.
Yeah.
And now I have to do every single MT number, every Ministry of Transport number for every patient to go back to the nursing home on my 12-hour night shift. And I work full time. And I haven't done any for 3 weeks.
Yes, it's a puzzle.
It's a puzzle.
Hoodwinked.
Hoodwinked?
The public's been hoodwinked.
Yes.
Oh, maybe for the better, but...
I think the thing that worries me is...
I mean, if I had an elderly... If my parents were demented in a nursing home and had very low quality of life, they would be a DNR.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be an issue for us.
I mean, my parents are not in that condition. Yes, they are in a retirement home, but it's a very upscale
But we're not getting
place, and
anybody,
they're very
though. Not all
independent.
demented, right?
Well, I doubt that they're all
I know.
demented. No, of course not. How can you? Corona doesn't just pick the ones that are demented, but they're all in nursing homes.
Right. So it's interesting your dad immediately got ambulance transferred to the place for a fall, whereas I'm not seeing that. We would get a fair number of patients from nursing home fell from standing, or like where the hip fractures.
Yeah, and that home for the disabled that has had such a problem and outbreak, 2 have died. I
They're not
assume
here.
They died. Well, they aren't quite in our catchment, but
Well, we take the higher level patients, though,
I
right?
assume they died in their institution. The same thing.
Because that's Major Mackenzie, right? So Major Mackenzie typically...
No, it's Markham.
Markham and Major Mackenzie typically will send us. But we're not getting anybody. Tornado General's not sending us anybody. We're just not getting anybody. Food for thought, a terrible thing, but kind of a smart and an obvious move to prevent the acute side being overwhelmed, which would have caused more deaths in more people. But boy, I'm stunned it's not being spoken about openly. That's the sneaky thing.
I had to sort of sneak around to
Don't
find
worry, we're
something
sending
about it.
nurses in to help them out. So to send a couple of IP&C nurses in with a box of masks. It's strange times.
It is.
Thank you, Kitty. You look very nice.
I doubt it. I'll probably hate this video.
I think very so. Remember, you guys out there, if anybody has an emergency box of hair dye in Kitty's colour, please send it to us urgently.
Yes.
And the other thing is, Kitty is going to cut my hair, I think. When, I don't know. Soon. And she's a bit blind, so I'm quite worried. This has been a 2020 Bad Bull Terry production.